we have perfect information. In the past, we had perfect information about Glyph of Despair when Glyph of Despair was relatively new to the game. And then we found out exactly what the percentages are in order to seal your affixes on your item, especially if it's an exalted item, especially if it has 4 affixes on it. Today, we're going to talk about something slightly different, and that is a new introduction to the game as of patch 0.9.2. We have the Rune of Research, but we also have the Glyph of Insight. So the Rune of Research is something that allows you to research, so to speak. It takes a experimental modifier and it moves it to a sealed position. If you use a whole bunch of these, you'll start dropping a Glyph of Insight. A Glyph of Insight, it says right here, you will get them if you have a bunch of tiers on your Rune of Research. So you can read this on your own time in order to farm your Glyphs of Insight. But the important part about Glyph of Insight is that it has deterministic crafting associated with it. So I don't have a picture of a Glyph of Insight right here, right now. Let me pull one up because I am ill-prepared. Let's go this one right here. So a Glyph of Insight, I will read it to you. And I will also try to make it larger, like this. It changes a prefix into an experimental affix. So all experimental affixes are prefixes. If you didn't know that already, you do now. It only works on glove belt boots, and it does not work if you already have an experimental affix on it. The exact experimental affix that the Glyph of Insight turns your normal affix into, and the tier are determined by properties of the item. It is deterministic. Which properties determine the affix, and what is required for higher tiers of the experimental affix that it turns into, can be discerned by watching this YouTube video. You now have perfect information. I'm a little bit worried that I'm going to disappoint people with the information that I'm about to share. I will say I love having stuff that is not immediately obvious. The patch has been out for like 3 or 4 weeks at this point, and we don't have perfect information yet. It took people a while to get around to doing it. It took people a while to do the research on it. It just took time, and it's been fun trying to figure it out. Here we go. So, in order to determine the tier of the experimental affix that you receive from a Glyph of Insight, there's a couple moving pieces here. I'm going to be copy-pasting information onto this this document that you see on the screen right here. So first things first, I will show you this. I will show you that gloves, when you are crafting your gloves, it depends on the total affix tiers. So if you have 2 tier 1 prefixes and 2 tier 1 suffixes, that counts as 4 total affix tiers. If you have 5, 5, 5, 5, that would be a tier 20 item. The second thing that I'll share with you is for boots. It depends on the forging potential that is currently available on your pair of boots. The last thing is, of course, the belt. And the belt, to me, was the most frustrating thing to farm up because it's really dumb. People in chat are already saying, are you kidding me? Wow, what? Yeah, exactly. For belts, it depends on the level requirements of the belt that you're crafting on. Belts might end up being trickiest for you in order to target. It'll be easier to know what you're about to get, but it'll be very hard to target something on your belt, in my opinion, based on my experience here. So let's keep going. There's a lot of information to share with you. This information is linked in the description of the video. I'll share it there, but honestly, it's so stupid. I love it. It's so stupid. I love it as well. It's so good. So let's enter a couple times here. There is a calculation to determine the tier of the new experimental affix. So if you just use a Glyph of Insight, it might end up being a tier 1. And you want more than a tier 1 because you work hard for your money. So how do you get like a tier 2, a tier 3, or even a tier 4? So tier 4 is the highest you can get. How do you get like a tier 4 experimental affix as the result of your Glyph of Insight? There's 4 things that it depends on, and you're going to facepalm in at least one of these things, okay? The first thing that it depends on is, well, I guess let's the copy paste this first. It depends on this, right? So the baseline is like 0. Pretend like it starts at 0. Okay. Here we go. Does the item have 2 unsealed suffixes that are the same tier? So if your suffixes match tiers, if they're both tier 1 or they're both tier 2, that counts as +1. So if you have like a normal item, you use a Glyph of Insight on it, and your suffixes both match tiers, all of a sudden your experimental affix will be tier 2. So this is the easiest thing for you to do. However, it also means that if you have like an exalted suffix, you probably don't have a double exalted suffix. We'll get to the double exalted suffixes, I promise you. The second thing that it depends on is the highest prefix on the item higher than tier 5? We're going to keep talking. It'll make more sense in just a moment here, okay? Does the item have a sealed suffix? If it has a sealed suffix, it's worth +1. If it has a higher tier sealed suffix, it gives you +1 as well. Wait, let me make sure that I'm saying that right. Exalted. Oh shit, it's so confusing. Hold on a second. And then of course the last one is the item exalted? So we have exalted, highest prefix is higher than tier 5. Higher than tier 5 if so +1. Sealed affix is tier 2 or higher. So the affix, it should be of T2 or higher, like this. That should be it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there we go. So what this means is that if you have a exalted prefix, it fulfills 2 of these things. Because an exalted prefix is the item exalted? Yes. And is the highest prefix of an item higher than tier 5? If so, +1. So if you don't have, sorry, if you have an exalted prefix, it makes it a little bit easier in order to get a tier 4 experimental affix. If you don't have an exalted prefix and you're in the market for a tier 4, you're actually not in the market for a tier 4, because at that point you're signing yourself up to have double tier 6 or double tier 7 suffixes, and you're probably not going to have double tier 6 or double tier 7 suffixes. So realistically, if you want a tier 4, you're looking for a prefix to be exalted. On the other hand, you should note that there are other ways to get your tier 3 or even your tier 4 experimental modifier to be higher. You could crit. If you do a subsequent craft and it crits, it could raise the tier 3 or tier 4 experimental modifier up 1. Currently, there's a bug in the game where you can just obtain shards in a different manner and then craft them. I'm not going to describe that to you because it's a bug, it's unintended, and that'll be removed in the future. Cool. So that's how the tier of experimental affix is calculated. Are we good so far? Sealed suffix or sealed affix? It doesn't matter. Either one. Yeah, so otherwise, a double exalted suffix of the same tier, tier 6 or higher. Yeah, got it. So this is your first chunk of information here. Here's an example for you that I will post on the screen. So you'll get a tier 4 from using a Glyph of Insight if you have an item that is exalted, has a prefix higher than tier 5, a sealed affix of 2 or higher, and your suffixes match tiers. So again, having an exalted prefix makes it much easier. Having double tier 6 suffixes is much, much harder. But there, that's your example. Let's talk about gloves first. Gloves depend on the total affix tiers, and there are 4 total affixes for gloves. There are 4 total affixes for boots, and there are 4 total affixes for belts. So I did most of the work here. I didn't do all of the work for you. So you're going to have to do a little bit of mathematics for yourself, okay? Assuming that an item has 1 affix. We're going to start here, okay? If your total affix tiers, let's copy paste a little bit. Assuming that you only have 1 affix. If your total affix tiers are 1, you're going to hit the dodge, endurance, experimental modifier. If it's 2, it's going to be ward HP. That'll be your exsanguinous kind of modifier here. Your total affix tiers are 3, so you're taking 1 tier 3 modifier and you're turning it into an experimental modifier. You're going to hit the armor applies damage over time. And then if you have a tier 4 modifier on an otherwise empty item, you're going to get the ward on kill stuff. This confuses me because it's counterintuitive with the rest of the information that I'm about to share with you, okay? The rest of the information that I'm going to share with you is based upon having 4 affixes on your gloves. For boots, we don't need to talk about 1 affix versus 4 affixes. For belts, we do not need to talk about 1 affix versus 4 affixes, but for gloves, we do. So this is assuming only 1 affix for this part here. For your 4 affix item, which I'm going to assume is the vast majority of the kind of crafting that you do, we have this. So your total affix tiers of 4, 5, 6, and 7 go in this order. And then repeat the order. So if you have like a tier 12 item, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you're going to hit dodge. Does that make sense? If you have a tier 17 item, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, you're going to hit ward HP. What about 2 or 3 affixes? Figure it out. I did most of it. I literally don't have any more Glyphs of Insight. If you want to do 2 and 3 affixes, you can figure it out. The important part here is that it loops, and it's deterministic, and for gloves, it depends on your total affix tiers. We good? Cool. We're going to go on to boots at this point. Boots, we still have our 4 total affixes. I'm going to take this out because this doesn't matter to you. For boots, it depends on how much forging potential you have left. In a similar way, it loops. Yeah, crit crafts are going to mess up your gloves. Absolutely. So for your forging potential, it goes in a similar loop. I did mine with 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And you can extrapolate because it goes in a cycle. So we have Frenzy. For 14, we have Ward on Traversal. 15, you will hit the minion teleport thing. And for 16, you will hit Haste. So if you want to deterministically craft your Haste boots, you want your forging potential to be 16 plus, what is it, a 4, I guess? 17, 18, 19, 20. So just like a multiple of 4. So 20, 21, 22, like 24 forging potential left. You're still going to hit Haste. It's like you're going in a circle. Hopefully this makes sense to you. If it doesn't make sense, oh my god, please say something. Or in the YouTube comments, it's fine too. The last bit is for belts. And belts were a huge pain in the butt in order to figure out how it worked. Because the level requirements, frankly, I don't know exactly how they work because I've never really bothered to learn how the level requirements work. As you put more affixes, as you put more total affix tiers onto your items, the level requirements go up. I don't know all the intricacies of that, but that's basically what it is. In any case, I can tell you how it works here. For example, if you have a required level of 32, because this is what I worked with, ward on potion use, that hybrid modifier is going to show up. If you have a level requirement of 33, or, looping in a circle, like +4, ±4, ±8, you're going to hit the mana potion, the mana on potion use. For 34, you're going to hit the traversal cooldown stuff. And then for 35, you're going to hit the actual exciting thing, in my opinion, which is Volatile Zombie. So it's an interesting time for raid. It is an interesting time for raid. I think that's about it. Hopefully there's no questions. I will not be taking questions at this time. Hopefully this makes perfect sense to you and everyone understands exactly how to take advantage of this deterministic crafting. Remember, your gloves depend on total affix tiers, your boots depend on fortune potential, and your belts depend on level requirement. If you want to do the hard work and figure out how gloves work with 2 and 3 affixes instead of just 1 and 4 like I have here, does this mean that you can't get tier 5? Yes. This means that you cannot get a tier 5 affix by using a Glyph of Insight. You can get tier 4 highest, and then you have to crit somewhere else in order to get to tier 5. Cool. If you're interested in stuff like this, you're probably also interested in the Glyph of Despair video, which I will link in chat right now, !despair. If you are on YouTube, or I guess if you're in Twitch chat right now, and you're interested in more of this, there are people out there who are doing data mining and setting up like a, what would you call it? Like a path of building kind of thing. I know Zeker and Void Motas are both working diligently on that. If you're interested in working along with them in order to like help develop what like the path of building sort of tool damage calculator for Last Epoch is going to look like, talking to me is fine. Getting in contact with them directly is fine. I can always put you in contact with them. They don't have a website yet, but they're working very hard on making the tool more publicly accessible. So shout out to them for doing some of the hard work on the data mining part of this. And shout out to me for, figuring out exactly what's going on with the rotation of all of these things. I'm tired. I'm going to go do something. Let's go craft some items. I'll see you next time.